What is up, guys? One of the most common questions I get is what steering wheel is that in your car? So tonight, we're gonna go over each one of the steering wheel, quick release, and hub setups that I run in each car. And this will be a good way to kind of give you guys some of the reasons why I run what I run and get you up to speed for any of the cars that I had quick steering wheels on prior to doing any YouTube content. So in no particular order, we're gonna start with my 99 NB. Most of you are quite familiar with this car. So for this setup, we're gonna get in here, get up close and personal. No pun intended. This is a personal suede wrapped 350 millimeter steering wheel. The biggest thing that attracted me to this wheel, and this is one of my most favorite wheels, and you're gonna see this a couple times in some of the cars, is one, I just think the spoke design of it is beautiful. It's simple, but it's curved and accented in every right position. I love the Alcantara wrapping on it. I think it looks ultra classy in the car, and not to mention the gorgeous green stitching in here. So given all the green stitching accents that I have throughout the car, it made a lot of sense to kind of go with this wheel. It's offsetted with a set of green titanium. These are real titanium bolts. It took me a long time to find those in that particular shade of green. For the quick release, this is a NRG, I think it's a version 2.5. And I went with the neochrome because there wasn't like anything that just had like a green ring at the time, which I kind of wanted to go with green, but I like a little bit of contrast. If you look at most of the interior, aside from the green stitching that you have throughout, it's a pretty simple. So I just like having a little bit of pop here. Yes, it's kind of ricer, but it is what I run in here, and I don't really have any reason to change it. For the steering wheel hub, this is a Daikai, or Daikei, I know I butchered this name. This is a plug and play hub. It has all the plugs for your horn wiring and your SRS airbag resistor in here, so you don't get any SRS lights. It's a complete plug and play installation, and that is why I went with this, because I didn't want to chop up the wiring on this car. Bam, I love this steering wheel. Definitely my first choice for a wheel. Next car. Next on our list is the red Turbo NA Miata. So this car, I went in a little bit of a different direction. Typically, I always kind of liked racier styled wheels, like typical steering wheels that you find in your race cars. But because I was going for more of like a retro themed deal with this car, and you can see that with the 911 RS seats with headrests and the GT40 grommets, the door pulls and the steering wheel handles and all the shit that I have in the dash. I wanted something a little bit more old school looking. So for this car, this is a Nardi Classico, and this is a 365 millimeter steering wheel. It has a gray stitching throughout it. This is a very smooth leather wrap. It's like a Napa leather. I do like it. The wheel feels ultra quality. These are not cheap wheels. I want to say they run around $300 now. But I felt that this really just kind of tied the interior together and really kept with that retro kind of old school theme, and it just tops it off and really adds that second sense of occasion that I was kind of looking for. So I should have mentioned this before. I don't run anything smaller than like a 350 millimeter wheel, especially in cars like this Miata and my NB Miata, because they're depowered racks. So having too small of a steering wheel definitely increases the steering effort. I don't think that 360 is like too big for the car. I think it fits just about perfect, especially for me. I still have plenty of clearance here for my legs. Don't mind my scrubby sweatpants. So this wheel has an old school, this is an NRG version 1, I want to say, quick release. Nothing special, just kind of a semi-polished finish on it. And this has a Dakei or Daikei hub as well. Now this I kind of screwed up on. This was the first car I put an aftermarket steering wheel, and this was a long time ago, way before I even had a YouTube channel. But this is not a plug-and-play hub. It has no account for any of the clock spring stuff or I'm sorry, it does have room for a clock spring, but there is nothing for your horn wiring unless you use an old school, just the grounding contact. There's a brass ring in here that you can utilize. Now, when I installed this, I had to cut up my steering wheel wiring, which is just that ribbon wire, and that was a big mistake, but I did it, and then I didn't have a horn. So I do have a horn now, but what I ended up doing is I ran an aftermarket, or I shouldn't say aftermarket, but I ran a wire to make contact for the horn, and I had to drill a hole in the back of the hub. So I don't recommend people get this unless you don't care about having a horn. I drove around with a horn for about a year, and I was like, this is ridiculous. If I get hit in this car because somebody doesn't see me and I don't have a horn, I'm never gonna be able to live it down with myself. So I did run a horn, and if you are going to go with this setup, I would just get the plug and play one like I have in the NB. Much better decision. So that is this steering wheel setup. Next we have the ultra sexy, probably the sexiest car ever fucking made, 1993 FD3S Mazda RX-7. So surprise, surprise, or I shouldn't say no surprise, this also sports a lovely personal Alcantara wrapped 350 millimeter Neo Grinta wheel, just like the NB. Same wheel, just this one is accented with a really nice, actually fiery red stitching. I don't know how well that's going to pick up on the camera, but it almost has like a little bit of a metallic sheen to it. And the only reason I went with that is because I have the tan and black interior scheme going on here, but I do have some red contrasting stitching on my center console, e-brake boot, shift boot, so I kind of stuck with the red thing. I don't know if this is going to keep it for the long run because I do love green, but for now it just kind of works. It is accented with also titanium, real titanium, red steering wheel bolts, red personal horn button. And this car, like the red Turbo NA, also sports a version 1 semi-polished. It's not brushed, it has like a little bit of a sheen to it. Version 1 energy quick release wheel, and also another Daikei or Daikei, however you'd like to pronounce it, plug and play steering wheel hub. The connectors for horn and airbag in this car are identical to the NB Miata. So this is actually the same exact part number, same exact hub. So again, no big surprise, but this is the steering wheel that I run in this car. And also when I had the red AP2 S2000 and I did a steering wheel setup in that, I bought the same exact wheel and put it in there. I did sell it with the car when I sold the car. Next, we're gonna move along to my 2007 BMW Z4 M Coupe. Now this car, and this is the only car that I'm probably not gonna put a steering wheel in, and I'm gonna tell you why. So the only thing that's really done to the interior, this is those pedals, but the steering wheel itself, I typically love a nice aftermarket steering wheel. There's always a little bit of numbness that comes with a car and the OEM wheel. I don't know if it's just because there's more shit that stuff has to travel to before your connection with the steering shaft, but it always seems to mute the car a little bit, and I always felt like having a modern wheel, or I'm sorry, an aftermarket wheel, just engages the driver a little bit more, and it just makes the driving experience that much more special. Now on this car, the stock steering wheel on this is actually pretty unique. It's very thick brimmed, and that's one of the things that's like kind of cool about it. It's probably the chunkiest steering wheel that I have. It has some aggressive cuts here. I really dig the contrasting stitching. I know I like this foofy shit in cars, but it has the M colored stitching throughout it. And M logo here. You do have controls for your audio and just audio and Bluetooth, although the Bluetooth in this car sucks ass. I I'm gonna leave this wheel in the car. The size of it is actually probably about in the 355 to 360 millimeter range. It's actually not that big of a wheel. It does look proper in here, and I don't think it's that much of an eyesore. The only thing I don't particularly love about it is the airbag cover here. It's that typical like shitty BMW like crinkle material that they use in their base model cars, and this is like actually the only place that this type of material is really found in this car. But other than that, I think the wheel is not too bad. And plus, I'm really being cautious about what I decide to change on this car because I don't want to really ruin the value of it. And I don't say that about cars typically, but I don't think the wheel is bad enough where it warrants a change. Versus most of the other cars that we've gone over, I don't like the stock wheels in particular, and I felt that a change was totally necessary. So just something to add. Next, we're gonna move along to my 8P1 S2000. I'm doing some work for this and some product development, so I gotta be careful what angles I shine the camera. So we're going to look up, pew pew. But this car, surprise, surprise, another freaking personal Neo Grinta 350 millimeter. I went with the green stitching again, but I found out in this wheel, and this is a little interesting tidbit, is they are using a stitching that is similar to Porsche GT3 911 green. It's more of a lime green, and that was a bit of a disappointment getting it, mostly because I had already stitched my damn center console and my shift boot in the same type of green that matches the other green Nardi. So I think this is a change that they made for the more recent wheels. It's not that big of a deal unless you're really staring at it. You can really see in here because all the light is coming in, so it really highlights how light the green is. But other than that, when the hard top is on, it looks darker, so it's not that big of a deal. Same thing, titanium green steering wheel bolts. I bought a couple sets of these. I actually think I bought out all the guys' inventory who was making them. The steering wheel hub is a version 2 NRG, and as you can see, it's a weird combo of two different shades of green. Now, I was a little bit disappointed when I ordered this wheel because, or this quick release, because it was supposed to be gray with a green ring. Oh, I'm sorry, gray ring with green on the sides, or one or the other. I can't remember, but I guess when I got it, this is what I received, and I did some further research, and I was kind of upset, but they no longer make the gray on green. So if you want green in the quick release, this is what you get. So I'm just kind of running in here. It's really ostentatious, but I do like green, and I am a little bit of a ricer like that. Plus the green ring really matches the titanium bolts, so for now it's staying. And it was an eBay purchase, and I didn't really want to deal with the hassle of sending it back and possible restocking fees and yada yada yada. You know how it goes. So this is actually using a NRG Slim hub also. This is the plug and play SRS version of this hub. If you're doing an S2000 install, I highly recommend you get this because there is no slots or anything drilled to run your horn wiring and airbag wiring through. They give you the SRS resistors, and it's only about $20 more over the non-SRS unit, so I highly recommend that. The other reason why I went with this is because the stock S2000 steering wheel, just like actually kind of like most of the steering wheels in these cars, sits a little bit too far forward, but the S2000 especially, where I feel like I'm really reaching farther forward than what I would like to. So that spaces it out just about perfect for where I sit in the car. I have plenty of clearance here. I don't hit my hands on my legs. Get good access at the pedals, can heel toe, no problem. So without anything interfering, and that's what's really important. Again, 350 millimeter. I do have power steering still in this because S2000 has awesome electronic power steering with no static horsepower drag on the motor. So that remains, but the size is damn well proper. I have clearance for my elbows here, but I can still rest my elbow when I'm doing a cruise, and I don't bang my elbow when I'm shuffling a slide. So works out very, very well, and I love it. And last but not least, well, actually I have two cars. You want to see this thing? Oh shit, what wheel is in here? Oh my God, it's the ugly stock steering wheel without an airbag. But in all seriousness, RX-8, this is probably one of the only cars where I would say you don't have to change the steering wheel on it because the stock steering wheel is pretty nice. Actually, everything about the RX-8's factory interior is actually very, very, very nice. But like I was saying before, there does feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect in this, and you can see how chunky this is in here. There's a lot of meat in this steering wheel, and I'm also trying to take weight out of this damn car, so the steering wheel is going. Now, I know a lot of people say, aren't you worried about not running an airbag in your car? Well, I look at it like this. I've been driving for a long ass time. I'm a pretty accomplished driver at this point, not trying to sound braggy or toot my own horn, but I'm not driving a motorcycle. I try to limit the high risk activities in my life. So I have the car stuff and I have firearms. And that's the two high risk activities in my life. I thought about getting a motorcycle. I've always wanted a motorcycle, but I won't do it because I feel like the risk is too great. In a motorcycle, you have nothing. At least in a car, you know, without an airbag, it's not the end of the world. A lot of people think it is, but it's not the end of the world. Yes, if you get in a head-on collision, you are probably fucked. So just do whatever you can to not get into a head-on collision. But it's a risk we all take, or not everybody, but it's a personal decision. So you have to decide what's right for you and then make a decision accordingly. This is what I deemed right for me, so that is what I do. So for this setup, and I'm gonna be filming an install video for this probably this weekend, Nardi. This is a Classico 360 millimeter Alcantara wrapped, beautiful, beautiful wheel, black spokes, Nardi horn button, and trim ring. Now, I think the RX-8 interior is pretty modern looking, but what really drew me to this wheel, because even though this is like a more classic wheel, I think there's two things. One, I think the suede and the black spokes kind of bring it a little bit more into the modern era. And two, in a best motoring video, or I should say hot version rather, the Leg Motorsports RX-8 was featured in one of the budget rear-wheel drive sports car challenges, and there was a non-suede, just a leather-wrapped, black-spoked Nardi in that car, and like, it just left an impression on me that I was like, man, that wheel looks really good in that car. And I thought I would never say that just looking at the RX-8 interior and then looking at this style of steering wheel, but for some reason they just kind of complement each other nicely, and I think the suede is really going to kind of tie it off. Plus it's black stitched, so this gives me options to maybe do some contrasting stitching through it, which I'm not sure if I'm going to do yet, but this is the steering wheel that I'm going to run the car. Again, a version 2.5, shorter quick release, bam, but on black, neochrome on black. Again, there's my ricer side coming through. I know not everybody agrees with this, but when modifying a car, as I always say, you should do what makes you happy, and this is what makes me happy, and that's why I'm running it. Day killing this name. I didn't know that they made a hub for this car. I had to do a little bit of digging for it, but here it gives you a chance to see the guts. There is a cutout somewhere in here for wiring. Right there, there's a window. Get my finger through there. Hello. This allows you to run all your wiring through for your airbag and everything else. Now this is really crazy. I'm gonna give a shout out to MiataRoadster.com because, and he didn't sponsor this, he didn't give me any discounts, just for the record, but he was the only one that I found that was offering a reasonable price on this, and it came directly shipped EMS from Japan, and he was very easy to deal with. So just giving him a shout out, well done, and I think it's well deserved. Again, no sponsorship there. But what I thought was really interesting about this when I got it is check this shit out. And I didn't even know this was an option. Look at that. If you wanted to have cruise control, they give you the connections to allow you to keep your cruise control and horn functionality all in the horn button, which I don't know how you're gonna really press these. I guess you can, if you press gently, you can press them without honking your horn. I don't use cruise control in my cars ever. I just don't, so that's not a big deal to me. I'm not gonna run this. I don't think that this horn button would look too attractive in the center of this Nardi wheel. So that's the other reason why it's really an aesthetics thing. But check this shit out. You get volume control buttons too, if you want to keep the radio buttons. Now I don't mind, I'm old school, so like I'm just used to driving older cars and having to reach over to the radio itself and adjust the knob. But the fact that this thing comes with all this, and pigtails to run it, it wasn't advertised. I don't even know if this is gonna work. or if this is the exact hub setup for the RX-8. There's really no indications on here, so I'm hoping that it all comes together right. But even though I'm not going to run this stuff, it's pretty crazy that they have options for that now. I'm assuming these are the SRS resistors. I think the RX-8's a little bit more, has more pins. It's 4 pins versus 3 of like the RX-7, and I think that's why you get 2 of these. Although I'm not sure until I take it apart. I couldn't find anybody who didn't install for one of these, so it should be pretty interesting. That was a mouthful, but that is what I run for steering wheels and some of the reasonings why. If you guys have any questions or you want to know a little bit more, feel free to drop them below. I'll do my best to answer them. And we're gonna leave this one off here. That is this for my cool car Shizzz steering wheel edition. Till next time, guys, done.